Okay, so friends, it is 8:30 in the night in Indian time. So on behalf of Center of Excellence in Advanced Manufacturing Technology at IIT Kharagpur, myself Surjapal. So I'd like to welcome you all in this, the webinar series. The Center of Excellence in Advanced Manufacturing at IIT Kharagpur has been set up in early 2018. It is a industry academia collaborative research platform. So we are working on 4 thematic areas. One is the materials, design and automation, additive manufacturing, and industry 4.0. Saturday manufacturing talk we have started sometime in mid of March of this year. Today is the 20th week. So we are just flying off. We are having webinars, on different topics on advanced manufacturing. We have covered materials, additive manufacturing, automation, and also some webinars on the industry 4.0 or the digital manufacturing. When you talk about the manufacturing, you all know that the manufacturing industries, face a lot of difficulties because of this unexpected, the machine failure or the defective product, the formation. So how AI/ML methodologies or the tools can be leveraged to improve not only the operational efficiency, also to launch new products, to customize, the product designs. If we look into the, the research study, we find that European industries or the manufacturers, they have already started, they using AI/ML methodologies to a large extent. Almost 51% of the industries of the European industries, they are using the AI/ML methodologies, followed by Japan 30%, and then US 28%. If we look into our countries, the perspective, it is much lower. And also, if we look into the sectors of manufacturing, we find the AI/ML methodologies are widely used in the field of the maintenance and also the quality inspection. The manufacturing, the difficulty is that, a lot of process variables, so large number of data is getting generated. How are they impacting the process? How are they impacting the product designs and all? So it's very difficult for the human being to judge. So AI/ML plays an important role in deciding the control factors. And specifically, the last 1 year, this pandemic period, the COVID-19, the period, we observe that the industries are also focusing to a large extent towards the implementation of AI/ML in the manufacturing sector. So one such, the tool of AI/ML is that reinforcement learning. It has got a tremendous impact on taking the decisions for the complex systems and also for the dynamic environments. So on this topic, that is the reinforcement learning in the manufacturing systems, today our speaker is Professor Sudeshna Sarkar. We all know who is Professor Sarkar. So he's an expert in the field of AI/ML. But as a protocol to this, the webinar series, I'd like to introduce formally. Professor Sarkar is the head of Center of Excellence in Artificial Intelligence at IIT Kharagpur. She is also a senior professor in the Computer Science department. She has done BTech from IIT Kharagpur and MS from University of California, Berkeley, and PhD from IIT Kharagpur. Her research interests are artificial intelligence, machine learning, and natural language processing. So let us all, we are all eager to hear from Professor Sarkar on the reinforcement learning. Professor Sarkar.
Thank you, Professor Pal, for the kind introduction. So in today's talk, can you see my slides?
No, it's not. I think I can't see. Ananta, is it okay at your end?
No, it isn't family.
No, I think you have not yet shared the.
Please, just a minute.
There is a share button just beside the stop. Yeah, it's coming. Yeah. Please go to the full screen. Excellent.
So in today's talk, I will give a brief introduction to reinforcement learning. a brief introduction to reinforcement learning and talk about some applications in the manufacturing domain. I must tell you that I have no expertise in manufacturing, so please excuse me for that. So all of you know that machine learning plays an important role in almost every domain today, and also and especially in the domain of manufacturing. And when we look at this domain of manufacturing, there is a lot of a lot of work, as Professor Pal was just saying, in using data-driven methods to have improved manufacturing processes, and there are various applications. Now, there are various types of machine learning methods that have been applied in different domains, such as supervised learning, unsupervised learning, and reinforcement learning. When there is a process where you have to take a sequence of decisions, or when the agent or the system will continuously act with the environment, in those cases, we are not looking at just a single valued forecast, but a way of continuously acting in an environment. And this is where the reinforcement learning framework becomes useful. So you have a notion that when you have a particular task, there is a notion of having rewards and penalties or penalties based on the action that you have taken. So in general, you have an agent or a system, which can be a computer-driven system, automatic system, which is interacting with the physical environment. Now, this agent can observe the environment through sensors, for example, through the camera or different sensors, and the agent can take certain control actions. For example, suppose there's a robotic arm which has to pick up certain objects. Now, the robotic arm, the objective is to pick up the correct objects without damaging them in the least possible time. So whenever a correct object is being picked up and put in its proper position, there is a reward. As time passes, there is a penalty, so that the robot is incentivized to complete the task as early as possible. And if the object gets damaged, there is a penalty. So this is the sort of process that is set up. And in terms of this reward and penalty, we can define the long-term utility of the system. So reinforcement learning is used when you have some goal-oriented learning through interaction, and the goal can be specified through not just the achievement of one specific objective, but through the definition of these reward functions. The environment can be stochastic. The result of the control actions can be stochastic. The system has a state which captures the information about the system, and which is a representation of the agent and environment configuration. And the agent's actions influences the state, and based on it, the observation it gets in the next step. The objective is to maximize the long-term reward. Now, so as we said, environment in a state, and when an agent takes an action at a particular state, the result of the action may be stochastic. So you can have, in the deterministic case, you can go to a particular state, or in the stochastic case, you have a probability distribution on the next states. And the transition function can be defined as the probability of the next state S prime, given the current state S and the current A. Alternatively, we can write it as T of SA S prime is the transition function, which is the probability that action A taken at state S lands you at state S prime. And RSA is a function which is the reward obtained at state S by taking an action A. Now, the utility of the agent, the long-term utility, is defined in various scenarios based on the objective of the current problem. For example, you can look at the utility over a finite number of time steps or a finite horizon by taking the sum of the rewards over the horizon. But there are many cases where we do not want to bound the number of time steps. Rather, we have an agent which is continuously acting in an environment. And such cases, we have infinite horizon setting. And in those cases, we can define the reward return function in different ways. For example, the very popular return function is the infinite sum of discounted rewards. That is, the reward at the current time gets multiplied by 1, reward at the next time step by gamma square, the next time step by gamma cube, where gamma is a value between 0 and 1. You can also take the average of the sum of the rewards. So there are different ways one can define the reward functions. And the objective of the reinforcement learning agent is to learn a policy, that is how to act, what control action to take at a particular state so that the utility function is maximized. Let us take an example. This example is taken from slides by Professor Dan Klein and Peter Abel. Suppose we have a car and there's a racing car and there are 3 states, cool, warm and overheated. Now, the actions are fast and slow. And, the actions given at a particular state cool, given that the action is fast, there is a probability of going to a state warm or a state of cool. From the state warm, if the action is fast, you go to the state overheated. So we can define for every state, for every action, the transition probability. And with the state action transition, you can define the penalty. For example, when you go from cool, you take the action slow, you get a reward of +1. From warm to cool, you get a reward of +1. But warm to overheated, you get a penalty of -10. Right? So there are 2 actions, slow and fast. And when you get overheated, there's a penalty of -10. So the system has to act, and the overheated state is also when you cannot come back to the other states. The objective of the system is to collect the maximum rewards and design the control policy. So the overall system is modeled as a Markov decision process where S is a set of states, A is a set of actions. We have a transition function. And our objective is to learn a policy, that is to decide what action to take from every state. The policy in general could be stochastic, but it has been shown that there exists a deterministic policy which is optimal. Now, given the system, suppose we have an agent, we are showing at the trajectory of the system. Suppose S0 is the state at time 0. The agent takes an action A0, gets a reward R0, goes to state S1, then take action A1, receives reward R1, goes to state S2. So this is an example of application of the system. This is called a trajectory. Our objective is to find an optimal policy so that if the agent follows the policy, it can get the optimal value when it starts from any state. So we define 2 notations. One is V of S under the policy pi. That is, if the agent is at state S and follows the policy pi, what is the expected return? We can also define alternatively Q of SA under the policy pi, which is the expected return if at state S, the agent takes an action A. Now, we can define the optimal value function as the value if we take the optimum policy. So the optimum value function of a state S, V star S, is the value V by S for that pi for which this value is maximum. Similarly, we can define the optimum Q value, Q star SA. Now, given such a system, if the transition functions, reward functions are known, one can use certain dynamic programming algorithms to find the optimum policy. In reinforcement learning, typically, we assume that there is an underlying Markov decision process under which the system is acting. What is the meaning of Markov? It means a state completely captures everything about the system. So you do not need to consider the previous history. So given the current state, you have the full definition of the system, and from that you can decide what is the best action to take. But when we look at reinforcement learning, typical situations, we do not know the transition function or reward function, but the agent can take action and it can observe. And by this, it can gather experience. And based on this, the agent can, given the experience, the agent can learn the Markov process, which is underlying. And from the Markov model, it can learn the optimum value or policy. Or the agent can directly go from the experience to learn the policy without necessarily learning the model. We'll talk a little bit about that. So reinforcement learning has different dimensions. There are model-based reinforcement learning where you first learn a model and then you learn the policy, or it is model-free where you directly learn the policy without necessarily learning the model. Then the RL system can be either passive or active. In a passive RL system, the policy is already given, and under the given policy, you can learn the value function. So you do not have control on the agent. You can only observe the agent, which is performing certain policy, and based on that, you can find certain things. On the other hand, in active or off-policy reinforcement learning, in off-policy reinforcement learning, you need to learn both the optimal policy and the state values, and you can experiment in certain cases. So just to give a brief overview of model-based learning. In model-based learning, we have the system and we know the underlying model. And if we do not know the transitions and the rewards, based on the experiments or the observations, we can estimate the transition function and the reward function. And given the estimated transition and reward function, we can apply certain dynamic programming algorithms to learn the policy, optimum policy. And for that, there are certain standard algorithms. Two popular algorithms are value iteration and policy iteration. Before we come to that, we will mention the Bellman equation based on which these algorithms work. So Bellman equation, defines certain conditions, certain relations. So V0, the value at state 0 for action A equal to AI is the reward obtained for the action I plus gamma times Vi. So if you take action AI, you go to state Si, and let's say Vi is the value of the state Si, then V0 equal to Ri plus gamma V. And so the V0 under action AI, but V0 is this expression, and you take the maximum over all actions. So in this picture, we see there are n actions, A equal to 1, A equal to 2, A equal to n. And for each, you know what are the states that you go to. And for each state, you have the value. If you know the value, then you can find the value of the original state. So what this equation gives you is a relation between the value functions of different states. And you can get, for every state, you can write this equation. So you get a system of equations, and the solution of the system of equations gives you the value function. For a stochastic system, of course, for every action, you have a probability distribution over the next state. Suppose at state S0, for the action A equal to 1, with probability P1, you go to state S1, with probability P2, you go to state S2. And therefore, we can define V0 as max over actions, summation over the states, probability of transition from A to the particular state, then reward for the state action pair plus gamma times Vs. So we can define the Bellman equation, the system of Bellman equations, and try to solve them. And for solving them, there are two standard dynamic programming algorithms. In value iteration, what we do is that we initialize the values of every state to some arbitrary values, and then we iteratively update these values based on the observations that we get. I will not go through the proof of these equations, but I'm just showing these equations to show that there are simple iterative algorithms which can iterate and learn the value function. So at every iteration, you find out that whether from the current previous time step and the next time step, is there a change in the value function? If there is a change, then we will update Q, the Q of SA based on the observations, and then compute Vn plus 1, the value of the next time step. And based on that, we will find the policy at the nth time step. And we will repeat this until the difference between V of n and V of n plus 1 is minimum, is very small. The second algorithm is policy iteration, which is also iterative, but there we start with the policy. A policy is a mapping from state to action. So from every state, we have some action. We start with an initial policy. For that policy, we evaluate the value of every state, and then we try to update the policy by recomputing the policy for the next time step as finding that action. For every state, we find that action, so that under this, we can take this maximum. And this is also an iterative algorithm, and we can show that it will converge to a particular fixed point, which is the optimum policy. But these methods, they require that you already know the model. Then there are model-free methods where you do not assume that you know the model, because getting the model is difficult in various ways, getting the full model. For example, suppose you are trying to do a self-driving car, you have autonomous driving. So for every state, if you have to collect data for every action, this is quite dangerous, because the car might encounter an accident. Or if you're treating a patient in an ICU, or you're trading on stocks where you have to put your money. So in those cases, and many cases, having a model to start with is not feasible. So in the model-free case, we assume that there is an underlying Markov decision process, and we can take actions and we can do observations, but we do not have the models known to us, right? So the agent sees a state of, sees the state of the system. Instead of trying to learn the transition function, it directly tries to learn the value of an action A at a state S. And for this, there are several algorithms. For example, the most basic algorithm is Q-learning, but there are other algorithms like SARSA, TD learning, etc. We will briefly talk about the Q-learning algorithm. It's a very simple algorithm. So we know that this is known that Q of SA is R of SA plus gamma times maximum over the action A, Q of S prime A, where S prime is the next state. So agent at state S takes an action A, goes to the state S prime, and you can take maximum over action A, and this is what is known. Now, given this, what we can do is that we can initialize the Q value randomly or to all zeros. And then we can iteratively perform this equation, which tries to correct the Q value. So this is the similar process that you do. Suppose you want to find the height, the average height of the students of the class. So you as each student comes in, you find his or her height, and you maintain the current average. And when a new student comes in, you incorporate the height of that person into the current average to get the new average. So for similar sort of equation is used here. Q of STAT is obtained as previous value of Q of ST plus alpha times the difference between the newly computed value minus the old value. So this is the second term is the error that you are trying to accommodate to get the mean value, the correct value of Q of ST8. Or you can write it like this: Q new of SA is 1 minus alpha Q old SA plus alpha times R plus lambda times max of A prime Q of S prime A prime, where S prime is the next state and A prime is the other actions that you can take from the next state. So this is a simple equation and this can be implemented by this algorithm. You start with a random Q table and you collect examples, and based on those examples, SAR S prime, you can update the Q table based on the equation we showed earlier. Now, how do you collect examples? When you collect examples, you can decide what action to take. And when you decide what action to take and you are doing this online, you want to strike a balance between exploiting what you already know about the system. So if you are in a particular state, you want to, if your previous experience tells you that this is the best action to take, you take that action that is exploiting your current knowledge. But if you keep taking the same action, you will never know whether another action would have been better. So you also have some probability of exploring those actions which have not been explored much. So you have a strategy which strikes a balance between exploitation and exploration. And there are certain sophistications to it, which I will not. Now, once you use the Q-learning algorithm, you can converge to an optimal policy, even if you are not acting optimally. So this is a very important result. And this is called off-policy learning, regardless, because in this equation, you are taking max over all actions. And if you take all actions with some probability from every state, and if you visit every state action pair sufficient number of times, then Q-learning will converge to the optimal policy, even if you are not following any particular policy. But there are certain caveats. You have to get enough data from experimentation, right? Which is a problem, and this is a problem that we will see how this is solved. And there are certain other issues. This learning rate, you have to make this alpha, you have to slowly reduce as you get more and more data. Now, model-free, there are several algorithms. The Q-learning we talked about. There are some other algorithms which I will not go into detail. The other thing is that, once you collect some experience, if every time, you may not be able to collect a lot of experiences. And if you go on collecting experiences, the Q-learning may not always converge. So what you do is that you do experience replay. So the update that you do on SAR S prime, you can take this 4 tuple and you can apply it later again. And why it is meaningful? Because when you apply it at a later time step, the Q values would have changed and you will get an updated value. So experience replay takes that into account, and there are different ways to make the process more efficient. Now, this Markov decision process is a very, very useful system. And on this, we can use reinforcement learning to decide how to take a complex series of actions, right? But there are certain problems. In a realistic system, the state space can be very large. Suppose in a manufacturing environment, you observe the environment by having a camera which looks at the image, right? Now, this state space is very large. If you really want to enumerate all possible images, that will be extremely large, and you will not be able to maintain this Q table. So, instead of taking individual states, when you have a large state space, we try to represent a state. You can try to represent a state in terms of a small number of features. And based on this, you can generalize. And what you can do is that you can define the state in terms of these features. And you want to learn, instead of maintaining a table of QSA values for every state and every action, you can have a function which, given a state S and an action A, gives you the next state S prime. So you can learn the model of the system as this transition function based on this sort of function. And you can also use this for the Q function. Very specifically, neural networks today are very useful. And in deep Q learning, you can represent the Q table through a neural network. In the traditional system, the Q table, for every state and action, you keep the Q value. But in deep Q learning, for every state and every action, you can feed it to a neural network whose output will be the Q. Or you can feed the state to the neural network, and if there are n actions, there can be n outputs which tell you the Q value for each action. So the Q function can be represented using a neural network. By doing this sort of function approximation, one can use reinforcement learning or Q learning on large state spaces and realistic problems. So this is a schematic diagram of a deep reinforcement learning agent. So this is the system on the left, or the agent, which acts on the environment. And from the environment, it gets reward R. It can take action A. It can observe state S. And the system has a neural network which, instead of having a mapping, the policy that from this state you take this action A, this is represented by a neural network. You feed the state to a neural network. You find what is the best policy to take. And the parameters of this neural network are updated based on the rewards and the observations that you get. So in deep Q learning, if we have a neural network, suppose theta are the set of parameters of the neural network, and that is the weights in the neural network. So we use QSA theta to approximate the optimum Q function Q star SA. And as earlier, we use the Bellman's equation. So Bellman's equation tells you how to get the Q value at the I plus 1th step, given the Q value at the ith step. But now, in order to learn the parameters of the neural network, we treat it as a supervised learning problem. So for this network, for every S and A, we need to have the target value of QS. So how do we get this target value? So we assume this Bellman's equation, and we use the parameters theta I minus 1 from the previous iteration as the target, and compare it against the actual Q value obtained after playing the action using the new parameters theta I as the prediction. So we can set up what is the QI plus 1 and what is QI, and based on this, we can set up the supervised learning of this deep neural network. And in order to learn the neural network, we set up a loss function, which is the difference between the target and prediction, the mean square error. And we can, in a neural network, we can do a back propagation on the error gradient to learn the parameters. So then the parameters of the neural network can be learned while the system is active. Now, deep Q learning has certain challenges. For example, unlike in a normal supervised learning, the target is continuously changing. So this non-stationary target, and there are certain issues around it. And there are some algorithmic binaries which tries to handle these, but we will not go into details today. The second challenge is But if you want to apply reinforcement learning to a manufacturing or such real life systems, often the problem is how do we get data? Suppose you are trying to use reinforcement learning for process controls in a process. Suppose you have a chemical system and you want to do process control. So at every time step, you want to set the values of temperature, pressure, etc., the control processes. And based on that, you want to figure out what is the best action, best control variables to take at every time step. Now, you cannot take all sorts of actions at all time steps, because that may be very harmful for the particular system. So instead what you can try to do is that you can try to use a simulator to supply you the data. And today in smart manufacturing, digital twins have become a very important concept. And a system like digital twin can supply you with data on which such deep reinforcement learning systems can be trained. So now we will just go through a few example applications of reinforcement learning in industrial manufacturing. So reinforcement learning is a very powerful framework, and it is especially useful when you require complex decision making and sequential decision making. It is also very useful when the environment is dynamic. So if the environment is static, you can have a fixed set of rules how to operate your system. But if the environment may continuously change, and you can get new types of input, in such cases also reinforcement learning becomes very useful. So I will just give you some examples of applications of reinforcement learning in industry, clubbed under 3 types of tasks: optimization tasks, such as process planning, job shop scheduling, warehouse operation optimization, production coordination, fleet logistics of vehicles. Then there are certain examples of control in robotic systems, trying to teach a robot to walk, trying to teach a robot to pick up objects, controlling of wind turbine, self-driving cars, automation of factories, smart grids, machine tuning. These are certain examples. Then there are examples of monitoring and maintenance, such as quality control, fault detection, predictive maintenance. So these are some examples where reinforcement learning has been applied or applied in industry. So let us take a few examples. So let us take some examples from the domain of autonomous driving. In the domain of self-driving cars, there are various sub-problems where reinforcement learning is used. For example, at a high level, there is this path planning or trajectory optimization. Then there is motion planning. Then scenario-based learning policies for highways. Then, skills such as how to park the vehicle, how to change lanes, how to overtake. So there are various use cases within the domain of autonomous driving where reinforcement learning is being used. So to just give an example, Amazon has come up with this product called AWS Depressor, for which they have a software system, as well as they have a 1/18th replica of a car, racing car, which has been designed, and you can use it to test out reinforcement learning. So this car has a camera with which you can visualize the runway, and it has a reinforcement learning model which can control the throttle and direction. And this can be used in competitions to see how these are working. Then another example of the use of reinforcement learning is DeepMind. DeepMind is a very renowned reinforcement learning company, which is famous for having come up with an excellent algorithm for playing the game of Go. So DeepMind algorithm was used for cooling Google data centers, which led to a reduction of 40% in energy spending. And these centers are now fully controlled with the AI system. So this is a high-level view of how the system works. The observation is taken by taking snapshots of data from the data center every 5 minutes. And based on this, you get the current state. And the neural network predicts how the different combinations will affect future energy consumption. And based on that, it identifies actions that will lead to minimal power consumption while maintaining some standard safety criteria. And these actions are implemented at the data center. So this is an example from the Google blog of using a reinforcement learning based system for picking up objects. Now this system could figure out that if you have to pick up a particular object, it becomes easier if you move other objects which are adjacent to that object. And this could be figured out by the system all by itself. So in general, for robotic arm manipulation, for doing different operations, gripper control, etc., reinforcement learning is a very standard framework which is used. So I will talk about a few applications, a few research papers which have applied to reinforcement learning in the domain of manufacturing. So this is a paper which uses a digital twin to train deep reinforcement learning for smart manufacturing. So as I told earlier, in manufacturing systems, if you want to train a reinforcement learning agent, you require a lot of data. Now, if one can construct a digital twin, the digital twin can supply that data through which the reinforcement learning systems can be designed. It's also that in certain cases, digital twins can be based on physical models or data driven. And in certain cases, even digital twins are learned by reinforcement learning. So coming to this paper, so what they show, they have an architecture where they have a virtual platform or a digital twin which can simulate the real-life manufacturing cell behaviors. So they construct a digital twin of the physical system, and from the digital twin, they can generate data. And the data that is generated from this digital twin are repeatable, they are inexpensive to get the data, and they're clean data. And using that data, one can do the control and scheduling operations of the system by using an intelligent schedule. So in this paper, they use the digital engine, which is a dynamic scheduler agent based on reinforcement learning. And they use deep reinforcement learning on this system to solve the control problems. Now, this digital engine is trained in 3 phases. So they first train by low resolution simulation. The digital twin that they have constructed, this virtual platform, through which they first obtain low resolution simulations through which they get the first training. And then they do verification training cycles with high resolution simulations. And in the third stage, they do physical verification using the physical plan. So by having this 3-stage process, they're able to utilize the digital twin to quickly learn an initial controller, then make the controller more sophisticated by a high resolution simulation. And finally, they can apply it on the actual physical platform and tune the system. So this is an overview of the system. So these are the physical, the orange cells. This is the physical system, which has sensors, then this PLC controller, the actuators, etc. And then you have this blue cells, which is the virtual cell, that is the simulator, which simulates the process. And then the red cells, which is the controlling agent, the digital engine. So this digital engine interacts with the simulator to learn the control policy, and the simulator interacts with the physical cell to learn the simulation. This digital twin is learned from the data obtained from the physical system, and from this digital system, the data is supplied to learn this reinforcement learning agent, and then the reinforcement learning agent is deployed on the physical system. So this shows the development of the digital engine. So they have a low resolution process simulator, and then based on this they get the scheduling agent, and then they get the high resolution process simulator with which they verify this, and then they can apply it to the physical system. So this is an example of using this platform on an operation scheduling task. So there is an operation scheduling task where the operators, you have to schedule certain operators, and you can apply reinforcement learning to decide how the operators are to be scheduled, so that at the end, all the operations have been scheduled. And the reinforcement learning system decides the sequence in which they are scheduled. Now, this system may be dynamic, and you may have to change. This schedule is not static, because based on the changing environment, the schedule may change. For example, if there is a system failure, then the system has to adjust itself. If there is a disruption of a particular operation, the system schedule will change. So when the system is acting in a dynamic environment where the states are changing, new states are coming in, there is change, then such reinforcement learning systems work well, and they have shown how they have utilized this. And this RL system, as we told, is being trained using the digital twin system. On the left, we have this digital twin, which supplies data for learning of this reinforcement learning system. The next example that we will take is the use of online reinforcement learning for assembly sequence planning. Now, when you have assembly lines, there's a need that it has to adapt to changes. It should be resilient to errors, and depending on the operator's skills and needs, the planning will have to be adaptive. So this reinforcement learning phase is a part of the assembly execution phase and is optimized with time and several repetitions of the process. So, this is the system where they have different operators, and these are the different assembly jobs. Operator OI produces plan PI with the help of the assembly guidance system and assembles AI. Now, this assembly guidance system can be manually given, or this assembly guidance system can be learned using reinforcement learning. And also online reinforcement learning because of the uncertainties that we discussed earlier. So suppose, this is an object which has to be assembled, and in traditional systems, the design, there's a design, there's a plan, and based on the plan you assemble, and from the assembly you get the feedback, and based on that you do the design. But in an online reinforcement learning system, while you are executing the plan, there is a feedback from the assembly. So there is an online system which can adapt to the changing conditions. And in this work, they have shown that such online adaptive systems, they have shown by running experiments with different operations and assemblies and a group of students. They have given 5 sets of experiments, and they have shown that by doing this sort of the online reinforcement learning helps to get better outcome from an adaptive system. Then there are other examples from production scheduling, where there are a set of jobs and there are a set of machines, and you have to schedule the jobs to machines. The machines may be heterogeneous, having different capabilities. The jobs may also be heterogeneous, and you can derive a schedule, and the schedules must be adaptive. For example, a machine may be down at a particular time. So certain jobs may take more time at a particular machine. So you can have a reinforcement learning system which can adapt to this sort of changing requirements and compute the schedule that minimizes the specific matrix. So in this system, the jobs and the operations, the machines, they are represented using a graph neural network. And the actions, actions are obtained from the system, and based on which one can define the optimum production schedule. The last example today, this is another paper which recently came out, which shows how a robotic arm, the accurate alignment of a robotic arm in an automation process of shoe manufacturing, the fabric shoe manufacturing. And these are the views of the system in action. And in order to, so it requires that this shoe tongue is being optimally placed. So it has to be very aligned with a great precision. So what the system has is a camera based on which it takes the image of the manufacturing process, and from that they have the state, and this is fed to a convolutional neural network of the current image, and the previous images are being also taken into account. For that, there is a recurrent neural network, LSTM network, which keeps track of the previous images, and a convolution neural network at each time step. And this neural network is used to learn the queue function based on which the action can be taken. And this system using, this is called AIoT, is the artificial intelligence of things. So AI of things is being used in this system for this accurate alignment of these objects for the production. And this is the neural network which learns the control of the robotic arm. As we saw that there is a CNN and there's an LSTM to look at different time steps, and the output are the robotic actions, the X, Y, and the angle. So this is another example which shows that that the physical assembly line, and this is the virtual assembly line. This is the digital twin on which the system is trained, and the system can be applied towards this. And this is a set of tasks which requires stacking, picking up objects and placing them. And for this, one can define a reinforcement learning system by defining reward functions. So you get a reward of +2 if action A completes without interruption, +1 if the action completes but there is some interruption, and -1 if there is a bad decision or the system does not complete. So with this, I will stop today, and if you have any questions.
Yeah. Thank you, Professor Sarkar. It's a very nice, the description about the reinforcement learning. You introduced us this concept through the reward and the penalty concept of the RL. You have also mentioned about the various types of the RL, model-based, model-free, different types of the algorithms like the value iteration, policy iteration. You have also told us the difference between the Q-learning and then deep Q-learning, and how the supervised concept has been embedded into the in optimizing the neural network parameters in the deep Q-learning from the previous iterations and all that also you have mentioned. You have told us the applications of the RL in different sectors like optimization, control, and the monitoring, and also some use cases. So it was a, the absolutely wonderful journey from the fundamentals to the applications. I'm sure that some of the questions should be there. Let us see what are the questions from the audience. Mr. Adarsh has mentioned that please explain the term stochastic, what it shows or represents and where it is used.
So if you have a system, a deterministic system means if you are at a particular state, suppose I am at a particular state, I go north and I will go to the next point. So that is a deterministic system. In a stochastic system, when you take an action, it's not certain where you will go. Rather, you will be in, so with, let us say with probability 0.8, I will go north. But with probability 0.2, I will remain in my correct position. So this is a stochastic system where there is uncertainty that from a state, when you take an action, the next state is not fixed, but there's a probability distribution on the next states. Similarly, for the reward function, a stochastic reward function is one where at a particular state S, if you take an action A, the reward is not fixed. The reward may be deterministic or the reward may be stochastic. So you might win the lottery with probability of 0.01 and you might not win the lottery with probability 0.99. So this is an example of a stochastic system.
Yeah. So one question from Mr. Devasis, I think Devasis Mr. is our student. So please explain environment modeling for a manufacturing system.
So actually, when you want to apply, this sort of model to a system, first you have to derive an abstraction of the system. And the abstraction of the system, you look at what is important for you. For example, suppose you want to pick objects from a table. Now, the color of the table, etc., does not matter. What matters is what are the objects and where they are positioned. So this is the environment in which the system operates is the, you have to model that. So, and the environment depends on what system you are looking at. If you want to place and, align the object, the environment is your workbench and how the different objects are placed. In a scheduling system, the environment are the different jobs and what are their components and what are the operators and machines available and what are their capabilities. So that is known. The environment is, which jobs have been completed, what is the current state of the jobs. The environment is the description of the current system.
Yeah. So one question from
physical system on which you are the cyber system, you are the agent of the computer system, and the environment is the physical system on which you are operating. Sorry, please go ahead.
Yeah. Mr. Obisek has asked, is it possible to put artificial general intelligence with robots using RL?
Artificial general intelligence is something that people are talking about, but I think it is not yet a reality because I think it will take some time to realize artificial general intelligence, especially in the context of RL, because in the RL we discuss about certain actions. We can work with continuous actions, but I think general set of actions is still impossible, still something that we have looked at.
Mr. Saurabh Tripathi has asked, why values or reward functions and policies have to be estimated through iteration? Can't they be defined from the start?
Right. So if you look at the Bellman equations, where we define the relations between the values of a state based on the values of the neighboring state, we get a system of equations, and the solution of the system of equations gives you the values. So we have to have an algorithm to compute the values, and the simplest algorithms are those iterative algorithms, which the value iteration and policy iteration. There are other, it is possible that there may be some, closed form solution, but they also are very complex. So these iterative equations actually work well. And in an online system, which is continuously changing, these iterative systems are very important, because if the environment changes, the value function is not stationary, it will keep on changing. Their iterative algorithms are absolutely essential.
One more question is that, where do we stand when it comes to actually applying RL in manufacturing industry? It's very different when you do it in academia using simulation environment.
So I'm not an expert in manufacturing, but for this talk, I did look at different papers and actual products. So I have found that various companies are using, actually RL is a very old algorithm. It's nothing new, and people have been using RL for quite some time. But now, because of deep neural networks, etc., these RL systems can be scaled up, and their use have increased a lot. There are a lot of companies which have come up with softwares so that one can very easily deploy RL systems. So they have become more popular now, and as I understand, they are being deployed in various systems.
I don't see any other questions.
For example, RL is very important when you try to fly a drone, run a bicycle, a robot learning to walk, robo soccer. So enforcement, on all robot actions, gripping, these low-level actions, RL is being used for a very long time, and in robotics it has been used for a very long time. But even in standard manufacturing systems, I think it has been being used for the last several years.
It is being effectively used for the robotic gripping, robot gripper applications. Yeah, Mr. Saurabh. Yeah, okay. Mr. Saurabh Tripathi has asked how to handle infinite states like monitoring dynamic process, like various welding, which produce unpredictable states.
You are talking about, so can you repeat the question?
How to handle infinite states like monitoring dynamic process, like various welding.
Yeah. Let me finish. But actually, I told you earlier that in a traditional system, when we define a state, we try to have an abstraction of a state. But nowadays, many times when we're now using deep reinforcement learning, for example, when you do a welding, suppose the state is defined by the observations, and suppose you have a camera which is mounted on your welding workbench. So based on the camera and the images, you have got something. The state may be infinite, but we can feed this image and the sensor values to a neural network, and we can get the output from that neural network, and the parameters of the neural network we can train. So complex state spaces which are not finite can be handled through such deep neural networks. For this, you need to come up with a representation of the state in terms of the sensor values that you get.
The question asked by Mr. Omkar, I think this question has already been answered by Professor Sarkar. Any other scopes of RL implementation in industries other than robotics? Mr. Omkar, this question has already been answered in the slides. That there are various applications of RL in manufacturing, in the optimization, control, and other.
Scheduling, control, optimization, maintenance.
Yeah, and okay, I think Mr. Partho Paul, Dr. Sarkar, will you give an example of RNN actually applied in process control, like in chemical plant? Are these systems being used in the industry anywhere in India?
I'm sorry, I cannot answer this question. I get the feeling that it is being used in many places, but I do not have any specific answer to this.
the questions from Mr. Devasis, we do have an ML-based existing systems for process control. How can RL benefit here?
You see, ML, RL is also ML. RL is a type of machine learning. So maybe you want to tell the difference between supervised machine learning and reinforcement learning. In supervised learning, you get one output. You get one input and you get one output at a particular time step. Reinforcement learning is applicable for those systems where you have a sequence of actions. Suppose you have a planning where it is not, suppose you are trying to grip an object. So it requires a continuous sequence of actions in order to achieve this. This is where reinforcement learning is used. It depends on the task that you wish to perform.
I think you have answered almost all the questions and there is no more questions in the chat box. Yeah, if any one or two more questions, anybody from the audience, participants? If not, then we'll close the session. Thank you, Professor Sarkar. Thank you for your presence, and it was a wonderful, the webinar on the reinforcement learning and its application in the manufacturing systems. Yeah, one question has come up. How RL is used in maintenance? Is the Nagesh? Is the last question, Professor?
So my guess is that so if you have a system which has different components, and you want to maintain them so that your long term you are suppose you have a car, and car there are different components and they need to be serviced. Now you have to decide when to service each component so that your long term return is maximized. So what is your return? You have to define whether you want good mileage, less fuel, less cost on repairs. So based on that, you can set up your reward and penalty, and you can schedule the maintenance. So you also have this penalty for the maintenance costs. You have the penalty for service, and you have so based on this, you can set up a reinforcement learning problem where you can decide when to schedule maintenance. In a plant, you have several components, and you can have different sensors which can sense, let us say, vibrations of the different motors, or the image, if something is malfunctioning, its color has changed, or it is creating a lot of heat or noise. So you keep monitoring them, and you decide when to schedule a component for maintenance, keeping in view the long-term utility of the system. Because if you do not maintain now, then the system can break down. Suppose a chemical plant break down, it will be down for almost 1 month. So there's a huge penalty. But if you want to maintain now, there is a cost because you have to pay for the maintenance. So you have to decide what is the optimal maintenance schedule so as to maximize your reward, limit the downtime, and so on. So this is an abstract example.
Yeah, I think you have answered all questions here. There is no more questions. Thank you, Professor Sarkar. Thank you so much. I would like